Hi, I'm Andrew Clark, the Logistics Optimiser. Today we're going to have a very quick dive into Optioryx OptiPick product. OptiPick is a pick path and pick clustering optimization. It's aimed at e-commerce businesses who are doing high volume small order picking, and what it allows you to do is to explore various scenarios to minimize the travel distance you do whilst you are picking. The results are quite extraordinary, and this is a short video. I will do a longer, deeper dive video, so that'll be a link somewhere. And so in this video, I'm just going to briefly show you the product and then focus in on the results that you get. So you light up a warehouse, and this is just a two-dimensional view of the warehouse. And if you drill into that, so this is just a sample e-commerce warehouse, which is a mix of pallet racking and long span shelving. And these numbers here indicate the fixed pick path that you set up in your warehouse management system for picking through the racks in this warehouse. And you can see you just go up this side and then up that side and then around here, and then you come around to this side of the racks and you go down there, and then come back up here, and then you go into these long span shelves here, and once you get into here you're bouncing back and forth because these are narrow aisles, and so it's easy to pick from. And what I explore, if I just sort of zoom out to fill the screen with that, what I explore in the scenarios is optimizing the pick path. So just look at, outside of the pick path, are there ways you can travel to pick a cluster of orders that is a shorter distance than you would if you just followed the fixed pick path. And then the second is, what if you optimized the cluster, the way you clustered your orders together? So those batches of orders that you put onto a trolley, you selected from, in this case here, it's a batch of 1,000 orders. So obviously that's a high volume picking environment. But in that batch of 1,000 orders, could you group those orders together for a pick on a trolley that would be a shorter travel path than if you didn't, if you just went in, date order or whatever your typical grouping of orders is in your WMS? The short answer to the question is yes, absolutely. If you optimize the pick path and you optimize the clustering amongst the orders, you get extraordinary improvements in pick path. The other thing that I explore is, what if you increase the cluster size? Because obviously it makes more sense. The more orders you pick together in a batch or a cluster, then the less distance you will travel around the warehouse when you are picking. So we have a look at at exploring, well, what if you just, what if you couldn't change the number of orders that you could pick in a batch because your trolleys were a certain size and you couldn't make them any bigger? Then what's the best you could do? And then, well, let's say you really hadn't optimized your picking strategies for your trolley loads, and you could go to bigger trolleys, or you could just figure out a way to fit more orders on. Then you increase the cluster size. What difference does that make? And the answer to all those questions is, the more optimization you do, the better off you are. But the results are way more significant than I would have expected. And so that's what this OptiPick product allows you to do. So you have the ability to put in your warehouse, which is just done from a spreadsheet. And then you have this strategic analysis. There is this operational analysis here, which is when you put into production. So you take the optimization strategies that you develop and then you productionize it by doing an integration with your warehouse management system to take the order data, process it through OptiPick, and then put it back with optimized pick path and clusters back into WMS, and then you execute the picking strategy as you normally would within the warehouse management system. So I've done a whole bunch of tests, and I did 3 scenarios. So I looked at the warehouse just treated as one zone with various levels of optimization and order cluster size, and then I looked at splitting the warehouse into 2 zones. So there's a faster pick zone, and then there was a slower pick zone, which I will show you. Because if I just go into the base case, so in this case there are 20 order clusters, and if I do a deep dive into that here, we can actually look at the heat map. So this will show you the darker colors the more you get towards purple. So these are the high volume pick items, right? And you'll notice that in here there is obviously much more activity than there is here, and by the time you get to this sort of last rack there's hardly anything going on. So this works out about half the orders in these few racks here, and then in the long span is about half the orders, but there are more pick locations. So there is, in fact, there's more skews in the what I would call, let's call it the slow pick zone, than there are in the fast pick zone. Less skews here, but much more activity. There's also this peak path analysis here. So here you can clearly see this is the start stop point. So you start from here, go out, following your conventional pick path, snaking through the racks, right, and going back and forth, and you can see where the heat is, where the high level activity and travel is. So that is Optioryx. Now let's have a quick look at what the data actually presents to us. Okay, so I've summarized the data out of Optioryx OptiPick and put it into this presentation here. So we're going to go through the different scenarios. And why are you not moving? There we go. All right. So the first one, looking at the warehouse as a single zone and doing various levels of optimization. So we can see here for those 1,000 orders. So remember, all of these are the same data set, just optimized in different ways. So treating it as a single zone. So in other words, you pick all of the picks for the cluster come from potentially any location in the warehouse. And in that scenario, the base case, which is just however the WMS has allocated the picks, which in this case is strictly in date order, in which those or time order in which the orders appear, and then that's 15.48 kilometers of travel for those 1,000 orders for the picks, which is quite a lot, right? Everyone knows there's a lot of walking involved if you're doing e-commerce order picking. Now, if you just take those same orders, not changing the clusters, but just optimize the travel path, then through OptiPick, then that falls down to 10.77 kilometers. It's about a 30% improvement in travel path. So that alone is, like, if you could get a 30% productivity improvement in anything in your warehouse, that would be amazing. So that is already amazing. But if you optimize the clusters as well as the pick path, 8.1 kilometers. So that is a 47.7% improvement. So nearly 50% improvement over the base case, and you have not changed anything physically in the warehouse. This is purely just by rearranging the way you pick the orders to optimize your travel path and to optimize the way those orders are grouped together into clusters. So that is amazing. If you get a 50% improvement in your productivity by doing that, I think we all think that would be a pretty significant improvement. And you think you're doing that day in, day out. You're doing 1,000 orders a day. I think this would be fine if you were doing 500 orders a day. I'm not sure where the value proposition lies yet in terms of the value that gives you. But any e-commerce warehouse that's doing a significant number of orders per day will get value out of this if you're able to group those orders together and process them so that you get like a day's worth of picking or half a day's worth of picking, whatever is the right amount batch size for you. You'll get huge levels of productivity but gain out of it. And so then what if you increase the cluster size? So that's what we're going through these other bars along here. So if we go from 20 order clusters fully optimized to 40 order clusters, so we're doubling the order size, the cluster size here to 40 orders, 5.6. So now we've gone from 15.48 to 5.6. So that's nearly like a 2/3 improvement, 67, 65%, something like that, reduction in travel path. 60 order clusters, so now we've trebled, right? So I'm not saying that is something you can physically do, but I think if you think about it, and I'll give you some strategies in a minute, that would make a difference. 4.53, right? 70 order clusters, 4.11. It's diminishing returns at this point. 3.88, 3.71, 3. That's for a 100 order cluster, right? So 3 kilometers from 15.48. Now you might go, Andrew, I'm never going to put 100 orders on a trolley. And you may be right? So this is just, I wanted to see what the extreme could possibly be. But I think you would agree that by the time this is like an 80%, 75, 80% reduction in travel path at this point. So let's just divert a couple of strategies that you can use to increase the number of orders that you are carrying around on a trolley, because this is physically dependent. How many orders can you pick? So there are two strategies I think you can use. A bigger trolley, right? You just fit more orders on it. Now, at some point that trolley becomes too big and you simply can't wield it, right? So there's a size limit to how big a trolley you can make. But I have seen some pretty large trolleys with a large number of picks. I've certainly seen a 50 order trolley, right, with 50 tubs on it for a large multi-order pick. Individual orders, 1 order per tub. The other strategy that you can use is a multi-batch pick strategy rather than a multi-order pick strategy. So the multi-batch pick strategy is something that we do with the Logistics Cloudco warehouse management system. So in that, instead of 1 order per tub, you can have many orders per tub, right? So because you think e-commerce, a lot of them are like 1 or 2 units per order. So they're really physically not terribly big in a lot of cases. Not in all, but in a lot of cases. So because it can get a bit impractical to have 50 tubs on a trolley, what if you put 10 tubs on a trolley and you had 5 orders in every tub? 50 orders, no problem. What if you had 5 tubs with 10 orders per tub? Easy, anyone could do that, assuming you can fit 5 orders worth of stock into a suitable tote. But I would say a lot of people could do that. So if you do that multi-batch pick strategy, now you've got a subsequent sorting process when you take that to a packing bench. So it's a bit like the put wall strategy that you'll see in some automated warehouses. So you have like a batch pick and then you sort that to order. Now that can be done at a packing bench. It can be done, you can sort and then pack, or you can just have someone doing the sorting and someone else doing the packing. But essentially you break the picking process up into a batch pick and then a sort to order. And that sort to order process is pretty quick. And we do all this driven purely by the WMS. So it is entirely possible to dramatically increase the number of orders that you are picking in each cluster with a multi-batch pick strategy. Got to get my words right there. Okay, all right, so this is just if we treat the order as a single zone. So, well, what about a 2-zone strategy? And we split the picks between a fast and a slow pick zone. Okay, so I looked at 2 different strategies, and they're very similar. But one I think is more practical and a bit easier than others. Depends upon your WMS and what it can do. So here we are. So single zone picking versus 2-zone picking. So what I'm doing is I'm pre-sorting the orders before we run them through the optimization strategy. So this improvement here, 15.48 down to 13.07 or 12.6 kilometers. So we haven't done any optimization. All we've done is we've just grouped the orders in a different way. So in the first strategy here, we've just gone, let's split it into 2 zones, that fast and that slow pick zone. And then we've just gone, well, we'll do our 20 order clusters for the picks from the fast zone, and then our 20 order clusters and the picks in the slow zone. Some of those orders are going to have picks in both the fast and the slow zone, and you're going to have to work that out. You're going to have to match that up somehow at the packing bench, right? Because you're going to have a pick from one order where part of the order is being picked from the slow zone, part from the fast zone. You have to have a process for doing that. If your WMS doesn't support any way of doing that, and of course we do in our in the Logistics Cloudco WMS, we can do that. But perhaps an even better strategy is, and it's slightly better. Now the difference is marginal, but hey, marginal differences make a difference. So the slight improvement is that we, instead of just doing a simple split between the zones, I actually split the orders into 3 groupings. So one was picks where the entire order was picked from the fast zone and there were no other picks. And then picks from the slow zone where there were no other picks for those orders. So that means you had two different batches, 3 batches in total, 2 different batches where there's no consolidation, right? So it's simply you pick and sort to order, or it might be a multi-batch pick, whatever. But the point is, you don't have to worry about trying to consolidate orders from a couple of different tubs picked, independently of each other. So that simplifies that process. The third grouping of orders was simply treating the warehouse as a single zone and picking those orders across the where they had picks from the fast and slow zone. We're just picking them all in one group, right? Walking the entire warehouse. So we've still got significant optimization from that, and in fact that strategy where you split fast only, slow only, and then just single zone mixed orders, that yielded actually slightly better results in this case. So and I can't stress enough, this is an indicative data set. We would have to actually see what would happen with your data, and we can run that analysis. If you're interested in OptiPick, we can absolutely run that analysis to see what benefits you would get in your warehouse. All right, next, 2-zone optimization test. So I'm looking here, I've called the 2-zone, I've called that parallel picking, where you've got those independent, all the picks from the fast zone and all the picks from the slow zone picked independently at the same time if you wanted to, and then consolidated at the dock. At the packing bench, versus the 2-zone, what I've called the optimise picking strategy. So I'll say parallel picking versus optimise picking, right? Slight difference, not a huge difference. So first is the base case, right? So let's look at the 2-zone optimised. 12.6 Ks on unoptimised, 9.32 if we just optimise the routing. So again, we're looking at about a 30% productivity gain just with route optimisation. Clustering and routing, 6.39. That's again nearly 50%. That is so close to a 50% productivity gain. I haven't worked it out exactly, but it's got to be like 49%, something like that. So again, that's with a 20 order cluster. We're not doing anything fancy with multi-batch picking or making bigger trolleys or anything. You could get that tomorrow, right, with OptiPick. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Then the next, what if we went to a 40 order cluster? 4.15, two-thirds reduction in travel path. Amazing. 60 order cluster, so I haven't gone crazy, right? 20 order cluster, 20 orders honestly in a cluster is not a lot, right? So 60 orders should absolutely be achievable one way or another, either with a big trolley sorting out to individual order, or with a multi-batch picking strategy. That is absolutely achievable. I think in most cases for e-commerce where you're picking small things. So 3 kilometers versus 12.6, that is extraordinary. And if you compare that to the 15 that you started with, it's even more amazing. That is nearly as good as the 100 order cluster in the base case that we just looked at, right? Well, where are we going? Oh, there we go, right? 3.09. That's nearly as good as that. Okay, and then similarly on the parallel picking, 3.54 was the best we got. So pretty damn good, pretty good. It's just that this is slightly better all the way. So both strategies would be worth considering in your situation, and we just see which one would actually work out better. Okay, so single zone versus 2-zone parallel versus 2-zone optimized, right? So this sort of darker blue, this is that's the single zone. This sort of mid blue, that's the 2-zone parallel, and the green one is the 2-zone optimized. Okay, so 15.48. That's a base case single zone, not optimized, just picked normally with the WMS. Optimized routes here. 10.77, 9.77, 9.32. So this is just looking at route optimization with different pre-sorting of order before optimization. Now, if we go to the route and cluster optimization, we can see the results are even more dramatic. 8.1, 6.57, 6.39. So you can see the results of the different strategies. Single zone versus 2-zone. 2-zone is obviously better, and I suspect 2-zone would be better in most cases. So which one you choose is going to be a horses for courses. It's going to depend upon what your warehouse management system can cope with, and how your business works. So next, let's have a look at the impact of larger order clusters. So again, we're comparing to the base case of 15.48Ks. So 40 order clusters versus 60 order clusters. So 5.61 kilometers here in the single zone split. Two zone parallel 4.27, two zone optimized 4.15. Not a huge difference between these two. You know, you'd be ecstatic with either of those. And again, 60 order clusters, 4.5 with the single zone pick, and 3.5 or 3.2 with the two zone pick. So the difference between these, you know, it's not huge, but if you look at that in relative terms, that's kind of nearly 20% improvement, right? Between the single zone versus the two zone. So there's still very, very useful percentage gains with a two zone pick strategy versus a single zone pick strategy. And when you compare it to the base case of, you know, still 20 order clusters but completely unoptimized, that is like, wow, that is huge. Do a bit of work on your physical, change your picking process, get a better WMS. If you don't have a WMS, this is available to you, and this will just have such a huge improvement in the productivity of your warehouse. It's unbelievable. All right, okay, so this is just kind of showing the same information again, but we're comparing to the base case and what's the maximum we could optimize. So if we don't change anything physical in the warehouse, 58.7% travel reduction with the best case scenario here. And then if we go to a 60 order cluster, so we're doing something that would seem to me in most cases to be achievable. So you go to a 2 or 3 times sized order cluster with some sort of combination of larger trolley and a multi-batch pick, then wow, here we go. 15.48 down to 3.22, that's a 79.2% travel reduction. It's nearly 80% travel reduction. This is with software and a bit of work on the physical. I think that would be worth it. I would do that. If I had a warehouse and I'm doing e-commerce, I would definitely do that. So I think that is my last slide. Yeah, that's my last slide. So I will leave it at there, because that is, for me, extraordinary that you can get those sort of results with software. I've got to say, intuitively I thought, oh yeah, it'll be better, and maybe you get 20 or 30% gain with optimization, but no, 80%. You can do 80%. So if you'd like to find out more about OptiPick and Optioryx, then you can reach me at at logisticscloudco.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under the Logistics Optimiser. Obviously, you found my YouTube channel here, the Logistics Optimiser with an S. So let's talk and let's optimize your warehouse and save you a whole stack of money. All right, I'll see you soon.